I'm just unpacking this, well, the Chinese 660 here, and I'm looking at this going, wow, this is not a different kit, but this is much better organized than the last one I did. Actually, like, screw for recoil started, they're actually labeled. There's a whole bunch of screws, and they're actually labeled this time. That makes the job a whole lot different. And you know what's what and what's for. I haven't done a lot with Stihl, so I'm not super familiar with what screw goes where. On a 372, I can, you know, if you show me a part, I'll know exactly on the saw where it goes, but, or a 350 or a 394, whatever it is. So that type of stuff I know, but this I'm not as familiar with, so having everything labeled makes a whole lot of difference. Good. Nice kit. Nice kit. I'm going to take everything out here. What I want to get to is the cases, because I got to put these cases together with the new tools. I'm excited. That's the crankcase. Yes, that's the baby. And that's what I'm waiting for. Open her up. This one does have the hole through of the positioning pin in there, so I'll put a little dab of something on that just to make sure it doesn't move. First things first, you want to measure this bearing and see how far out it is. Uh, 52 thousandths, which I think is too much. 48 thousandths. It's a little too far out because the oiler has a specific depth to it, and you want the oiler to sit down fully. 40 thousandths on the money. So I basically have to knock the bearing back a little bit. So I think the easiest way to get this in the right position is actually just to use a hammer, which I'd rather not do, but the high spot is over here. Let's see if that changes anything. 49 thousandths. So it's slowly going down. Really rather not use a hammer, but 43 thousandths. Now we're cooking with gas. Look at that. 39, 43 over here. That's going to be close enough right there for this to seat. That does actually sit down all the way now. Good. Now there are other ways you can do this. You can heat the case up, move it a little bit. Lots of different ways. You've seen me cold press things with the threaded rods. You could actually move it quite a bit that way and then pull it back into the, you know, put the oiler down and pull it back into the oiler, make sure it's seated exactly right. All kinds of different ways you can do it. I really don't like using the hammer, but it does actually work for this, and it's really not going to hurt anything. I'm just involved in a discussion online having to do with these things and using a hydraulic press to get the cases together. Can it be done? Yes, it can, but the better way to do it is with my tools. You can use hot and cold and all those methods, and you can press things together, and I know Walt has showed that it is indeed possible to do that, but the best way to do it and to make sure that there's no danger to the bearings is to do it with the tools that I've developed. Now, the other concern is that the seals, you know, if they stay installed and you try to pull that crank through the seal, the crank has a lip on it, and the problem with that is if you bring that lip through that seal, there's a little spring that's circular in there, and if that rubber inverts just enough and the spring pops out, you're never going to know it unless you do a vacuum and pressure test. So why risk it? Why are you going to risk bringing it through? The only reason that you risk that is because you want to salvage the seal. You want to retain that seal in there. Why? What's the point? Walt's right, it's hearsay, but this gasket that comes with this is supposedly no good. I don't trust these seals anyway, so just get a different gasket kit. Just get a different gasket kit. You can get the OEM kit, it's like $45. You can get this from HL Supply. Don't remember how much it is, probably like $15. You know what, I trust these seals a whole lot more than I trust those. So it just makes sense to get a kit like this. You know, just so you can make sure everything is a little bit more trustworthy. That's my opinion. There you have it. So once I have this, I don't even think twice about pulling these out. Let's do that. Now, that popped out relatively easy. It actually looks like the seal's fairly undamaged, amazingly. Usually these are completely shot when they pop out. It's got a bit of a ding here where you lift up on it. I don't know if I trust these to reuse them. Some guys might, but actually next thing to do is to measure between the bosses. So you put the gasket in, and you want to get the positioning pins in there, push her together, and now if you can, get a measurement between the bosses. Now, I think the differential between here and there is going to be about 70 thousandths, which means we need a 35 thousandths shim on one side. But in case it's not, let's get a measurement. Assuming you're trying to center .333-ish, 1.247. Either way, you want to get the crank lobe centered. 1.247, do the math. 1.247, 1.320, close enough. So 1.250 is to 1.70, 70 thousandths plus. It's a little more than 70 thousandths, 75,000, 35. So somewhere between a 35 thousandth, 40 thousandths shim is going to be the ticket here. So we're going to put the shim here, and then we can pull the crank through. So now we can put the oiler down just temporarily, just to make darn sure that silly bearing does not move. And our sleeve will still get to it. Now we need to make a 35 to 40 thousandths shim. That's right on about 40 thousandths, but aha, cheating. You can peel a little bit of it away if you 35 and a half. If I use a little bit of packing tape to hold it down, that might actually do fine. The shim does not need to be big, just a little piece of cardboard here. Placed in the right spot. I happen to have some aluminum tape that I think is going to be just right. Packing tape will work too, but you still have to measure it. All we're trying to do is we're trying to get the crank centered the first time without having to use a hammer to get it right later. That way the crank lobe just bangs on that, and it's going to just stop when I pull it all the way through. So now all I have to do, put the crank through. I'm going to go and sit in. We grab our adapter. I think this is M12 by 1. Do I have the right adapter? Yeah, look at that. You really don't even have to thread it all the way down, but you know, more or less loosey-goosey here. That's good. Take the sleeve. Sleeve goes on right past the oiler. That's sheer luck, by the way. That's not design. Okay. Threaded rod. Has a handle. You can use a washer if you feel like it. Nut. Crank it on down. And when you get to the shim, it'll just stop. Perfect. Shouldn't even be really tight here. Undo it. Really, for this one, you don't even really need to have the oiler installed. For the other one, you might, just in case it wants to pull some direction. Just thinking about that now. Whatever, doesn't matter. So there's your crank, ready to go, in the PTO side. Now you can move this around so you can get back to your shim here and just peel your shim out because you don't need it now. Let's find our case bolts. And 5x25 for crankcase. Brake cleaner. Same thing on the other side, obviously. Pull the positioning pins out. Now, one thing that was mentioned, I'm just remembering this, was that the flywheel side needs to have the case gasket down on it because the positioning pins can fall right through here on the PTO side. So you want to put the positioning pin here on the flywheel side first. So let's goop this side up first. One quick thing I'm forgetting. This seal right here. So pop that out. Sometimes there's debris in there. Just get the debris out. Let's get the 1184 on here. Get that going. So I've let the skin up a bit. Positioners go in. 1. Case gasket goes on. Both holes are good. You should be able to put it together, but you have to keep your con rod up here. Let the con rod back down slowly. Turn her around. M10. Loosey-goosey. Sleeve. I love it. The seal pocket is actually off center. Well, that's the other reason. That's not on straight. Okay. This sleeve is just a little bit too tight. So in this, you might want to put the sleeve in first. Then M10. Got to keep everything straight. Otherwise on here it isn't going to work. It's going to be too tight. Now remember, all this has to do is just sit. It's just got to sit there, and it's going to pull the crank through. So you're just pulling the crank through. That's all that you're doing here. So you've got our con rod up. It's not in the way. The positioners are in and aligned. Positioners have got to be in place. Just to make sure. That's it. Done. Undo the nut. Threaded rod. Ideally, you want to make sure that the tip is narrowed, skinnied down enough here. I may not have quite skinnied them down just enough, but should do. Here. Undo that rod. And it runs perfect. That's great. Beauty. Now we do the case bolts. I want to put a little dab of 1184 right here on this positioning pin. That way it doesn't want to move. Don't need much, just a little bit. Case bolts. They already have Loctite on them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can add more Loctite if you want, whatever. You can make sure your case gasket's good all the way around, of course. Finish them by hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Double checked. One thing you can do after you've got the case bolts in, if this is a little bit on the tense side, take and run the tool in on your PTO side. Just give it that extra little and it'll spin free. What happens is, as the case bolts pull the whole thing together, if you generate any tension in the bearings, you can just relieve that by just giving it a little bit more. And you know what? It's perfect now. So let's do the seals. A little bit of brake cleaner inside here. Gonna do our Coke can trick here. Little piece of Coke can in there. Just aluminum. Now, there are other guys that have mentioned that there are other materials you can use for this. In particular, film from a camera actually works pretty good. So I have not verified that, but it sounds good to me. I don't think the aluminum is actually strong enough to mess with the rubber, to puncture the rubber or mess it up, but if you're worried about that, using something like a firm plastic would indeed be the cure there. So now we can put the Coke can and seal down after we had put some anaerobic sealer on it, and push the seal down slowly. Now we need a socket. 7/8 of an inch will work. Probably 1 inch would work too. And knock it down until flush. That's it. Take your Coke can out gingerly. And your seal is reliably installed. Check the other side. On this side there's a taper. You do not need to use the Coke can trick on this side because the seal will properly go over the taper. Probably would be a good idea though to hit this with some brake cleaner. You don't have to use the sealer in here, but I am. This is Loctite 518 anaerobic. And one thing you can do, double check and make sure that silly spring is in there, which it is. Oh, perfect. What's that? 5/8. Yeah. Perfect. Your seals are installed. Take a razor, Brad Snelling style. You can take off the tabs, flush. Don't want a divot there. Same thing. Time to build a chainsaw. So, hope you like this quick tool demo, and I'm going to be excited about building this up for a saw. Steve, this is yours, coming your way. What else can I say about it? Hope you guys like the video. Hope you guys like the tools. Clearly I had a little bit of trouble with that sleeve on this because it's just so tight. So these seals are intended to be 22 millimeters. They're a little bit bigger than 22, but the pocket is 22 millimeters. So 22 millimeters is also, let's see what we got in thousandths of an inch. 868, 867. So what I tried to do was to make the sleeves 860 to 855 to 860. So they're about 5 thousandths smaller, and that may not exactly be quite the right tolerance. But if you need to kind of shave that seal down, or if you need to shave the sleeve down just a little bit of emery cloth will do it, just to take it down a few extra thousandths so it actually fits right in that seal pocket. And in order to do it, you got to make sure it goes in on this particular saw only. Make sure it goes in, then you put your threaded rod on, and make sure this whole thing is straight, because it's even a little bit off, this isn't going to fit. The tolerances are so tight on this. So, but if it does, once it does fit, you get it, and it's perfect. So, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoy the tools. Don't forget to subscribe for updates, especially on the Gen 2 tool. And I've got the idea in my head. The next couple weeks I'll be working on the prototype, and I'm excited to get that out to you guys. And for my existing customers, the guys that actually got the Gen 1 tools, the Gen 2 will just build on that. So you're not missing out on anything. I'm just a little late on getting the flywheel side for the small Stihls. Is really the only trick. It's the only trick. So once I get that, we'll be good to go. Thanks for watching.